wanted promotion at work, so I slept with my boss regularly, but my husband found out and did this. I know what I'm about to tell you all right now might sound disgusting, but trust me, I'm not also proud with what I did either. I hate to admit that I slept with my boss so as to get promoted, but I ended up going back to him until karma dealt with me really hard. I never thought I would be the type of person to cheat on my husband. Growing up, I always held myself to high moral standards and vowed to never betray my partner. But one night, everything changed. My husband didn't take it easy when he got to know about my affair, most especially when he got to know that my affair partner was my boss. My name is Winnie. I am 35 years old. My husband's name is Jordan. He is 37 years old. I work at an editorial company, but unfortunately, I'm no longer working there anymore. I was dismissed from the office the day my affair with my boss was made known to the public. That day was one of the worst days of my life, and I feel so ashamed about it. Jordan and I have been together for 7 years. We met at an auction which was organized by his father. Apparently, I was able to attend the auction that day because Jordan's brother, Luke, had invited me. Luke was my classmate from college. We weren't that pretty close, but we were just mutual friends. Luke was a lousy type and also very annoying back then. But as time went on, we became friends and invited me to the event. Jordan and I met at the auction and we became close since then and eventually got married to each other a few months later. Jordan is a nice guy. Back then, he was the type that likes trying out new things and was very smart. After our wedding, Jordan and I relocated and started a new life somewhere far away from our hometown. It was there that I got employed as an intern at the company I worked for. Jordan was a businessman, but despite that, our relationship was very strong. Jordan always made out time for me, and he made sure I never complained or lacked anything. After 3 years of our relocation, Jordan partially moved to another city due to his nature of job. My husband only comes back every Friday and spends the weekend with me before going back. It was tough and rough for us at first, but we later got used to it. We often spend time talking on the phone and video calling each other. My husband and I spent hours talking about how our day went and made a little chit-chat on random stuff. It was quite interesting, and during that period, I always looked forward to midnight so we could talk. In the 3rd year of our marriage, I wasn't an intern any longer. I was promoted to be on one of the marketing teams. I was happy, and I devoted my time to my work. I was always punctual and did whatever I was being told. That gave me a good record, which made me to be the first to be promoted among other interns that resumed with me. The feeling of being promoted made me work harder. I wanted to not only be on a marketing team, but also to be on a high rank. I wasn't happy with the position I was at that time because it was more challenging and cumbersome. At some point, I and some of my colleagues had to work late nights. Despite my promotion, some high-ranking colleagues made me work more than my stipulated time. They even sent me on errands that were meant for an intern. It was so frustrating that I wanted to badly get promoted to the next level. I couldn't tell anyone about it, not even my boss, because I might get into trouble or could even get fired instantly. My boss was a strict type that did not condone any form of lateness, not to talk of laziness. I kept up with some of the people that bullied me and didn't say anything. As time went on, I discovered that my boss was notorious for only promoting those who he had a personal relationship with. I got to know this through one of my coworkers, Pia. Pia was one of the oldest and highest-ranked workers in the company. She wasn't like the others that were mean. Pia was calm and friendly, and she often eases my work anytime she's in the office. As a result, I opened up to her about some of the challenges I faced at work, and also told her about my desperation to get promoted. The level I was getting a toll on me and badly wanted a promotion. She watched me rant and burst into laughter after I was done talking. I was pissed at her actions. I didn't understand why she had to laugh when I was talking about a serious issue. Pia, however, apologized. It was then she told me the dirty secret about our boss, how he slept with some of the female staff just to get them promoted. I was shocked at first, but at the same time wasn't surprised after all because my boss looked like the playboy type. But he does know how to look strict anytime he is in the office. To even sum the whole thing up, the mean ones among the co-workers were the ones that got their hands dirty for the promotion. I didn't judge them because I also wanted to get promoted. I was desperate to climb the corporate ladder, and so I decided to take a risk and sleep with him. After my conversation with Pia that day, I made up my mind to also give it a try. But I didn't inform her about it. Pia was a lady that never got her hands dirty to attain any position. If I had told her that very day, she would have countered it and dismissed that idea. Of course, I didn't want that to happen. A few months after that conversation, I mustered the courage to do it. It was a tough decision for me, but I had to anyway. I said to myself that one time wouldn't hurt. At least no one would know about it. My husband didn't even know about my hunt for a new promotion. If he had known about it, he would have asked me why the rush, because at that time I was barely 4 years into the job. I had been working at the company for 5 years and had my sights set on a promotion. It was at that time I got to understand that hard work and patience truly pays. Pia told me how hard she worked and how long she waited before she got promoted. At that time, I wasn't ready for that because I wanted to teach those that bullied me and some of the interns a lesson. And so I decided to also get my hands dirty. The day I made up my mind to sleep with my boss, I had mixed feelings. I kept thinking about what would happen after it. I kept asking myself if he would get me promoted after it, or would just want to have fun with me and I would not even get the promotion. After much thought, I decided to take the risk. When I told my boss about my decision, he had this weird smirk on his face. It was at that moment I knew he had been doing this with other female staff long before my employment. We booked a hotel that day and we secretly headed there after work. It was one night of passion and I was able to secure the promotion I had been dreaming of. But I wasn't as excited as I imagined I would be after getting the promotion. The guilt of cheating on my husband was something I had to deal with for weeks. Even when Jordan came visiting during the weekends, I wasn't that excited. I felt pity for him and I was ashamed of myself. The look on my husband's face when I told him about my promotion was priceless. He was genuinely happy for me and even took me out so we could celebrate my new promotion. At first, when I told Jordan about my new promotion, he was surprised. He thought I got it through hard work. My husband knew how hardworking I was, and so he never questioned it. Only if he knew at that time that I paid a huge price for that. My husband was the type of guy that liked celebrating achievements no matter how little it was. I made a stupid mistake by letting him slip out of my hands because of my own selfish interest. I was clouded by my own selfish interest that I hurt my husband in the process. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a means to an end. But honestly speaking, I didn't have the intention of going back to my boss for any promotion after the last time we met. But unfortunately, as the days went by, I found myself drawn to my boss more and more. Before I knew it, I was sleeping with him almost every day. I tried to justify my actions by telling myself that I was just maintaining my position and ensuring job security. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Everyone at the office was surprised at how quickly I got promoted, considering the fact that I was just a newbie. Working for 5 years in that office is considered a newbie compared to those who had worked for more than 5 years. At some point, some of the interns kept throwing subs at me, and I could tell they were indeed jealous about my new rank. Not everyone knew about my boss's dirty secret. Those that knew about it could attest to the fact that I had slept with the boss for the position. I kept cool and said no word to anyone, not even Pia. Pia also knew something was wrong, and on many occasions she confronted me about doing something. Despite the confrontation, I still didn't open up to her. I kept giving her excuses and denied it. As time went on, I lived past the guilt I felt. I stopped thinking too much about it and I moved on. Days, weeks, and months went by and I continued my affair with my boss. At some point, my boss and I were absent from work. I skipped work and often came up with some sort of excuses to justify my absence, and no one suspected me. My relationship with my boss was beyond work. Our affair became a regular thing and he often spent the night in my house. Sometimes I do sleep over at his house. My boss was married, but his wife was a businesswoman who often went on business trips. So it was very easy for my boss and I to hang out at his place. Things came to a head when my husband, who had been working overseas, surprised me with a visit. He had been suspicious of my late nights at work and constant changes in behavior. Apparently, I always missed Jordan's calls and didn't return them on time. And when I did, I often gave an excuse that I was busy at work. I lied to him about working late hours. He suspected that something was off and didn't buy my excuses. Just then, Jordan decided to come home. From the way I sounded on the phone, he thought maybe I missed him, and so he decided to pay me a visit. It was on a Thursday afternoon. On that fateful day, Jordan didn't inform me about his coming. He wanted to surprise me, but he ended up getting surprised after he walked in on me and my boss in a compromising position. His worst fears were confirmed. My boss and I were too busy to have even noticed my husband's presence. Jordan stood for a few seconds before we saw him. The look of betrayal and hurt on his face broke my heart. I couldn't even look at him twice in the face. I was so ashamed that I covered myself with the bedsheet. I had never seen him so broken, and it was all because of my foolish actions. He stormed out of the room, and I knew I had to face the consequences of my actions. Immediately, I got dressed and ran after him. Before I left, I ordered my boss to leave my house at once because my husband wouldn't spare him like he did if he came back the second time. I ran downstairs, but I couldn't find Jordan. I went outside to look for him. By the time I got outside, I saw him driving out of the compound. At that point, the realization of everything dawned on me, and I knew I had truly hurt my husband. I burst into tears. I fell on my knees and cried bitterly. I was so mad at myself. Everything became sour, and I didn't stop blaming myself. After a few minutes of wallowing in self-pity, I got hold of myself and went inside and met my boss inside. I got so angry that I wanted to give him a slap on his face, but I couldn't because he didn't force me into having an affair with him. After all, I was the one that took myself to meet him for my own selfish desire. My boss wasn't remorseful about what happened. I expected not to. In order for me not to create any scene, I ordered him out of my house, which he did, and banged the door behind him. I was left alone at that moment with my own conscience. The hurt I saw on Jordan's face pierced me so much that I wept. I couldn't muster the courage to even call him. Even if I did, he wouldn't have picked my call. With the way he stormed out, I knew he was furious. That day, I stayed all night waiting for my husband, but he didn't return home. I got so scared and kept having negative thoughts if something had happened to him. In between the night, I concluded on calling him. I tried his number. It kept on ringing, but no response. At some point, when it rang, Jordan would cut the call and wouldn't pick up. 2 days later, my husband returned back home but refused to speak to me. He wouldn't even look at me. I begged for forgiveness, but he was too hurt to even consider it. My husband ignored me and paid deaf ears to all that I had to say. His silence made me more angry at myself. At that time, I thought of Jordan's reaction after he caught me cheating on him. Everywhere a normal man that caught his partner cheating would react immediately or by sending her out of the house, right? But Jordan was different. I thought maybe he would eventually forgive me since he sent me out. But I was absolutely wrong. My husband didn't send me out immediately because he was thinking about the perfect revenge for me. How I wish I knew what he planned at that time. I would have definitely not stayed a minute in that house. Jordan's revenge was inhumane, and I will have to deal with it from now onwards. In order to get back at me, my husband came up with a plan for revenge. He contacted my boss's wife and exposed our affair. How he got hold of my boss's wife was something that still baffles me up till now. My husband didn't even know the company I worked for did not talk about my boss prior to the incident. He only knows that I was a worker at a particular editing company. When my boss's wife got to know about the news, she didn't spare either of us. The scandal was all over the news and my boss was forced to resign. My boss worked for his wife. Apparently, my boss's wife was the owner of the company we all worked for. She was from a wealthy family and got the company out of the inheritance of her parents. My boss was made a manager and was meant to work like we the employees did. Everyone got to know about this after the scandal. I was immediately dismissed from the office. For months, I was left without a job and my marriage was on the brink of collapse. The news spread so fast, and before I knew what was happening, my face was printed and pasted all over the company's wall. My husband got me on that one. I felt so ashamed of myself. I couldn't go out or go close to the company. But the worst part of all of this was the guilt that had it till me. I had betrayed my husband's trust and destroyed our marriage. It was a price too high to pay for a promotion. I was so stupid that I didn't think about the outcome of my decision. Jordan's anger was justified. He had every right to be angry. My husband told me that his revenge was too soft, and we were lucky because if he had had his way that day, he would have captured the whole thing at that moment and published it. Update. The revenge my husband had on me got me depressed. I was literally shattered and couldn't even think of anything. All that was in my head at that moment was how I would be able to go outside. On the other hand was my husband Jordan. He wouldn't speak to me or eat anything I cooked. Jordan and I lived in the same house for 2 days before he finally did his worst. Exposing my affair with my boss to his wife and the public was the tip of the iceberg for him. You all wouldn't believe what he did next. Guys, I didn't know that the time Jordan didn't send me out was because he had sold the house we lived in to someone else. He sold the house the day he exposed my infidelity with my boss. He didn't inform me about it. I only got to know about it 2 days after he left the house. Before he left, my husband dropped a stack of divorce papers on the table. It was on a Monday morning. Before I could wake up from bed, my husband had vanished. His side of the wardrobe was empty. His cars were nowhere to be found. Even my car was missing also. I didn't understand what was going on at that moment, and I decided to call him. Immediately, he picked, and he was acting funny on the phone. My husband told me that I shouldn't bother looking for him because he was gone for good and never coming back. Before I could say anything, he ended the call on me. I was so angry that I didn't understand why my husband decided to punish me this way. After publishing my scandal and ridiculing my life, isn't that enough revenge for him? Why did he have to take my car and other valuables along with him? To even think that he signed the divorce papers and left it on the table for me. Before I could get hold of myself, I heard a knock on the door. Immediately, I went to see whether it was my husband. Maybe he was just pulling my legs. I opened the door, but to my greatest surprise, it wasn't my husband, but two strange faces. It was a man and a woman. Immediately, they saw me and they got confused. I was obviously looking unkempt, and I appeared like someone who had a lot going on. Of course, I did have a lot going on after that. My face was everywhere, and the scandal was the talk of the day. The two strangers introduced themselves. I need no one to tell me that they were couples. Mere looking at them, they really reminded me of Jordan and I back then. But then, guys, this couple were mean. It took them a few minutes before they quickly knew I was the lady who had an affair with her boss. The woman didn't hide her disgust, and she kept throwing subs at me. I composed myself and paid no attention to her. The man standing next to her wasn't an angel either. In fact, he was more than his partner, just that his tone of voice was condescending. I endured everything. After all, I deserve every bit of it. It was the price I had to pay for my actions. The couple told me about the transaction they had with Mr. Jordan, which happens to be my ex-husband. I told them I wasn't aware of any transactions, and they burst into laughter. They made a mockery of me and told me that the house now belongs to them, and they gave me 48 hours to vacate the premises. To even back what they were saying, they brought out a piece of paper which contained the agreement they had with my husband Jordan. I was so shocked and surprised that I literally thought I was dreaming. I then realized at that moment why Jordan didn't send me out. He wanted to punish me by thinking I would end up staying in the house while he packed out. He left me stranded, and I didn't know what to do. My credit cards were among the things Jordan took from me. I was dumbfounded and didn't know what to do or say to the mean couple that stood in front of me. They saw how shocked I was and knew that my husband sold the house without informing me. They told me to vacate the property before they come back, and they wouldn't want to see me. They left with a face of mockery. I got inside and fell on the couch. I thought about what happened and began to search through my phone if I could get help from anyone. The few I called yielded no results. Some didn't pick or return any of my calls and text messages. At that moment, I remembered Pia and called her, but she told me not to call her again because she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, because that would be putting her job at risk. They must caution all the staff at work not to talk to me. It was obvious because by the time I had gone to pack my stuff from my desk, everyone minded their business and kept mocking me until I was walked out by the security men. At that moment, Pia was my only hope, and she turned me down. I eventually moved out of the house after 48 hours and spent the night in an abandoned, dilapidated building. For months, I still couldn't secure any job. As I sit here alone and jobless, I can't help but think about my foolish decision. I wish I had never slept with my boss. I wish I could turn back time and make things right with my husband. But now, all I can do is hope for forgiveness from him somehow if that's possible and try to repair the damage I have caused. The nightmares of my mistakes haunt me every night, and I am always unhappy that I let the love of my life slip through my hands. I really deserve every punishment that my husband is giving, but why was I the only one who gets punished while I actually had an affair with the person who is supposed to be my boss? Yes, I was his wife, or maybe I still am his wife because he refused to divorce me but decided to make my life a living hell. The funny thing is that he actually told me that he was not going to divorce me, but he will make sure that I suffer for all the heartache that I had caused. He actually made a promise that he will make me regret the day that we first met and the day I was brought to this earth. I don't really know what came over me. Lust and craving for something outside your relationship can cause a huge disaster and drift between couples. I craved for something that I was not getting in my relationship. I went outside my perfect imperfect relationship and ruined the only good thing that I had. I regret it, and I don't know what to do to fix it. I cheated with my boss, the person who I should be showing respect to and being professional around him. Now that I got caught, I don't really know how to recover from this. Where will I go, and what would I do without my husband in my life? I know I messed up, but can't he at least give me one last chance? I won't deny that I did him wrong, and what I did is unforgivable. I acted like a loose witch who doesn't think before taking action. Please tell me what I should do or say to make my husband rethink his decision. I miss him so much. My name is Mia Hendricks, female 31, and I first met my husband Alex Franklin, male 39. I won't say on the road, but the day I met him I had a flat tire and ran out of gas, plus it was getting late. I had been stuck on the side of the road for like 2 or 3 hours. Mind you, that time I was very far from the gas station. Alex was a cop at that time, so when he and his partner showed up, they asked me what was wrong and why I was parking at a hijacking spot. At that time, I didn't know that my car got stuck on a hijacking spot since I was not from Brooklyn. Time passed, we had made our relationship official. Everything was just perfect. We were one of those perfect couples that didn't fight a lot. Yes, we would squabble over some silly things, but it was never a big argument. Alex is bubbly and full of fun, but he has his quiet and reserved side. I like the fact that he knew how to take responsibility for his own actions instead of running away from it or finding someone to blame for his behavior. Alex is that kind of person that would just bluntly say or speak his mind without caring how you will receive it. After we had officialized our relationship, we enjoyed each other's company. We were inseparable friends or twins. Yes, we had our fair share of struggles and challenges, but we would always conquer it all by sticking together no matter what. But I didn't like the fact that Alex was actually a person that doesn't open up a lot about his life, and I would say that he had some sort of anger issues. It's like he had experienced some childhood trauma that made him have anger issues, but he knew how to hide it with his smile and kindness. I think that's why he became a cop, to fight off his anger issues. 9 months passed, Alex proposed, and I officially became his fiancé. I was just so happy, and everything was still smooth at that time. That was the best thing I had ever got. Even my Nana was happy, and that was enough for my heart. It took us the whole year to think and plan what we wanted for the wedding, and when that day came, I messed it all up. All because of lust and craving for something different. He really made me the happiest woman alive, and I was just glad and felt blessed to have someone like Alex. I really and truly loved him. I just don't know what pushed me to commit adultery, especially with someone close to him. That's being evil and inconsiderate. We got married on the 12th month of our relationship. I knew where and what I was getting myself into when I said I do. But I just couldn't be satisfied with what I had and went outside my marriage, and not only to jeopardize it, but destroy it in the process without even thinking that I was breaking my vows. We were married for 3 years and things started changing. When I say changing, I don't mean in a good way, but in the worst way possible. I started realizing that Alex and I were way too different than I had thought. He was what I loved, but not what made me happy. I started realizing that I had contributed so much in our relationship and forgot about my own happiness and self-worth. Jordan is a workaholic. He is always serious, working, going out to eat, romantic dinners, and spending a lot of money on me like I was selling. I didn't like all of that. I loved him, yes, but I was not happy. No matter how much he had tried to make me happy, but he was failing dismally. I had once tried to introduce him to clubs and exploration, but he just got bored, and it was like I was alone in the whole thing. He was insecure about my career choice, which is modeling. He would get paranoid for nothing and end up making hasty assumptions. We had tried a few therapists regarding his condition, but we found out that it wasn't really curable. You can only get a diagnosis or medication for it only. The only way to control it was to talk to a psychotherapist or find something that you would take out all your frustrations and anger on, like hitting the wall or going to the gym or buying a punching bag. I didn't think Alex needed all that. We didn't need all that. The only thing we needed was for him to be healed and stop this condition forever. In this marriage, I felt like I was trapped in a relationship or marriage that was full of love, but unfulfilling. I mean, I love being intimate, exploring new styles and positions, but Alex was always all about the simple and straightforward intimate moments. He would sometimes give up while I would still be enjoying the moment and begging for more. He would just tell me that he was tired, which came to me as a huge bummer. So I would end up satisfying myself with some toys which I didn't want. Our marriage became so dull, like we were old people who have joint and muscle problems. Over time, I started seeking excitement and validation. I wanted to feel happy for once since my husband was not doing the job. I tried going out a few times, even tried taking Alex to explore a few countries, but it was like I was the only one on the trip because he was stuck on his work trying to track down criminals. The only time he would actually give me his attention was during dinner or we were not indoors. Both of us are always busy and our jobs are somehow demanding, but I always make means to at least try and make time for us, even if it's a small one. But he wasn't giving the same effort and it was really tiring. So at work there is this coworker, or let me say he is the boss of mine, who always tried luck on me. But since I was married, I couldn't give him a chance. My boss and I were like a combo that communicated so well. We had the same personalities, interests, and desires. Sometimes I would even forget that he was my boss because he was just a free-spirited person. Some of my colleagues or other models would think that we were seeing each other behind closed doors. One day there was a year-end party for all the employees at work. The boss was there, and it was quite a shocker because in most annual parties at work, he doesn't show up. So that day he invited me to go with him to an annual music festival that was taking place in New Orleans. I wanted to decline his offer, but I thought about my boring marriage life and that Alex would be working a night shift that day. So I went with him. We had so much fun, we danced and drank. I felt like I was where I was made to be. The conversation between me and the guy was flowing. No one was forcing anything. The connection and the spark was there. As the night proceeded, I found myself entangled in a passionate affair with my boss named Jacques Morris, male 28. Though he was a bit older than me, he made me feel alive. He didn't have to try hard to know what I needed in order to be happy. I felt like he just knew what I needed without me even saying a single word. Well, our affair started that night when we went to the festival. On that night, a lot had happened. All I can remember is that one minute we were drinking and dancing. Well, more like jamming to the soulful music that was playing. The next minute, we felt each other's heartbeats. I felt like I had finally found what I had been looking and longing for. I loved Alex a lot, and I knew that he also loved me too much, but love alone is never enough when there's no happiness in it. I respected my marriage and loved the way Jacques was loving me and holding me in high regards, but that was not enough. I felt like there was something amiss, and I had found it through Jacques. He, Jacques, was what I had always been praying for, what my soul had yearned for, and finally the universe had answered my heart and soul desires. I knew that if Alex was to find out about the affair, he would be broken and maybe worse than that. That man really loved me, that's all I can say. In my marriage, I felt alone and neglected. My needs were not met. So the affair that I had with Jacques provided me with a temporary reprieve from my marital dissatisfaction. I believed that by indulging in this forbidden passion, I could or would awaken something in my husband Alex and break through his nonchalant demeanor. Jacques was explosive, like I was both in traveling and intimately. We were intimately connected, and I loved and enjoyed every moment that we had shared. He knew how to explore my body and make me find myself speaking a foreign language. My affair with Jacques went on for some months, I think 8 to 9 months if I'm not mistaken. We almost dated for the whole year, but the universe and God had other thoughts about the affair. Alex found out about the affair, and it didn't go well to a point that even today I'm still feeling the wrath of my own medicine. When Alex found out about the affair, I didn't think twice. I ended the affair with Jacques even though it was too late and the damage had already been done. Alex didn't do something the same time he found out. He acted like everything was okay. If there was someone to blame in all of this drama, that person would be me. I failed to stay loyal and faithful to my husband like I had said on my wedding vows. I wanted more than what God and the universe had blessed me with and went against my oath to love, cherish, be faithful and loyal to my husband through sickness and in health. I craved what my husband didn't give me, and I failed to hold and ignore the temptations. Instead, I fell for it. One day, Jacques was hosting a fashion show. Well, more like his models were asked by one of the successful fashion designers to model with his collection at a fashion show. So Alex and his crew, police officers, were asked to be at the venue just to make sure that everything was running smoothly and everyone was protected. Jacques introduced us to the officers, including Alex. I couldn't tell him that I already knew Alex and he was my husband, so I pretended like it was my first time seeing him. I was acting professional. During the fashion show, everyone had already worn the collection, so it was time for a small celebratory party for the successful show. I was not really comfortable because I didn't know what he would say to Jacques since Alex was the captain of the police officers, and he was speaking a lot with Jacques. My heart was not really at ease. So the party went on and everyone was enjoying themselves, but I wasn't, unfortunately. I had been stealing glances with Jacques, and I really missed his action. It was really hard being in the same room as Jacques and Alex, knowing that Jacques and I were actually in an affair. Some sort of relationship. Jacques and I had agreed to act civil around each other because we didn't want people to start speculating things. Even though I was not comfortable with that decision, it had to be made, so we agreed on being civil towards each other. So when he saw me sitting alone, he came over and we started talking. It was surprising how he could pretend like everything was okay while I was shaking in my boots. I didn't want Alex to see us together. I think it was guilt eating me up, but the guy was relaxed, so I had to also pretend and relax. As the night went on, Jacques and I continued to chat and our affection grew stronger. I knew there and then that I must have fallen hard for Jacques because I had missed his touch, the way he would appreciate my body and make me feel young and carefree. I know I shouldn't have done that, but I couldn't resist. He had that soft touch that would make me want to ask him not to stop what he was doing. It was like his touch and kisses were a drug. Not to mention our intimate moments were what I had been longing for in my marriage. Jacques made me feel alive and appreciated. What I did was wrong on so many levels. I should have ended the abomination whilst I had time, but guess what I did? I continued seeing him on the side. Well, I couldn't let go of him, I don't know why, but whenever I would think of cutting off our cheating, because he also had a fiancée, I would feel like I would be letting go of my happiness. We decided to move to the nearest hotel, so as Jacques and I were spending the night together, I was just happy. Well, more like my heart desire was fulfilled. So after having a lot of we decided to take a break and chill a bit. So we watched a TV that was in the room that we were in. Then all of a sudden we heard a knock. My mind quickly registered that we had ordered something to eat and we had forgotten about food because we were so cooped up in our moment of intimacy. So I decided to go and open so I could take our order. Mind you, that time Jacques was butt naked and I was wearing lingerie only. So I opened the door and got the worst shock of my life. I just couldn't believe it, like I was asking myself, how did he find me and who told him that I would be here? I knew there and then that I was screwed and there's no denying it. Alex was standing right in front of me looking at me, wearing lingerie only. Surely he told himself that I was going to accept the food while wearing something floozy. I knew there and then that my marriage was hanging on a very high and dangerous cliff. As hard as it was, I decided to be brave and end things with Jacques on the spot, even though my heart didn't want me to. But because I loved Alex and I believed that he was the one for me and no one else. Seeing Alex at the fashion show made me think that I would get caught any time and it was not going to be nice, not knowing that it would actually be soon enough. I had always imagined myself spending my whole life and growing old with my first love. I couldn't risk Alex finding out about my abomination, as I thought that would destroy and jeopardize our relationship and destroy our marriage. Alex was the missing piece in my heart and soul, while Jacques was the happiness that I had been longing for too long. I knew I was loved and secured by Alex. He loved me for me, He made me show the other side of me that I had never known existed. He knew how to treat me right and make me his first. Well, when he felt like it or was not busy with work. I don't know what really came over me to mess such a good thing that was going on between Alex and I. But I guess my heart loved Alex so much, but it also desired Jacques' energy and the action because the guy really knew how to make a woman squirt without trying so hard. So days turned to weeks and weeks to a month. I had been trying by all means to ignore the feeling of needing Jacques, but I was really failing. I missed him. I missed the way he made me feel. I really tried to be the perfect wife for Alex, I tried to be committed to my marriage, but it was just so hard. It was like I was forcing things with Alex. Yes, I loved him, and I actually still love him, but my body desired Jacques' affection and the way he was exploring my body. Sometimes I would even hand service myself while calling Jacques' name. That's how much affection he had on me. I then decided to just give Jacques a call, hoping that I wouldn't find him with his fiancée. Luckily, he answered the call and agreed to meet up with me at our usual spot, not knowing that Alex had put a hidden recorder in my purse. As I would go out more often, Alex eventually saw my sudden changed behavior and the way I would dress when going out. So one day he came home and asked to speak with me. Mind you, that time I had plans with Jacques, but I obeyed Alex's request. So during our conversation, Alex literally asked me who I was seeing behind his back. Of course I lied and said no one, but he demanded me to tell him the truth because if he finds out by himself, there would be a problem and I would regret ever lying to him. When Alex discovered the truth about my infidelity, he was devastated. His trust in me shattered, and I know he felt betrayed and humiliated. By the way, Alex found out about the affair when one sunny weekend afternoon we were spending time together after a very long time. I was happy to see that he was changing and becoming the man that I had fallen in love with, but intimately I still needed Jacques for my satisfactions. As a successful model, I was used to being in the spotlight, but little did I know my seemingly perfect life was about to take a drastic turn. My husband Alex and I had been together and married for 3 years and everything seemed great. Or so I thought. One day I was preparing for a big photo shoot that would happen later on, and Alex offered to help me get ready. He was being extra sweet, and I didn't think much of it when he handed me my purse. Unbeknownst to me, he had secretly placed a hidden recorder inside. At the photo shoot, my boss, Jacques, was being his usual charming self. We were working on a tight deadline and tensions were running high. In a moment of frustration, Jacques and I got into a heated argument. But as the day went on, our disagreement turned into a flirtatious banter. I didn't think much of it, assuming it was just harmless teasing. But what I didn't know was that the recorder in my purse was capturing every conversation, every laugh, and every whispered word between Jacques and me. And when Alex listened to the recording, his world came crashing down. A lot of things happened in one day, Earlier that day, when Alex and I were chilling in, watching Netflix while reminiscing about our first date and looking at our pictures and videos of our wedding day, I accidentally, I say accidentally because I have been keeping my phone to myself, making sure that Alex doesn't get to it, left my phone on top of the coffee table and went to take a bath since Alex and I had planned to have our dinner out. Well, it was his treat and he had already made reservations. So Jacques called while I was still bathing and preparing for the dinner date with my husband, and Alex answered my phone. So when I went back to the lounge to get my phone, I found Alex looking at it. Well, more like going through it. When I got closer, I discovered that he was reading my text messages with Jacques. I asked him what he was looking at and I needed my phone. The only thing he said to me was, Is this what you always do when you go to work? You sleep with your boss? He asked if Jacques wasn't my boss since he and I were talking about nasty things on our chats and sending each other intimate pictures. His question caught me off guard, and when I looked at him, I saw that he was trying by all means to control his rage, but he was highly enraged because there were veins coming out of his forehead. I tried explaining to him, well, more like trying to lie about my affair, but he couldn't hear any of it. Instead, his anger kept escalating up until he couldn't keep it in anymore. He couldn't control it, so he just took my phone with him and stormed out of the house. I was super scared. I didn't know what to expect with Alex because of his intermittent explosive disorder, IED condition. You can't guarantee what you can expect from him. We had tried for so long to make him be able to control it, and he had been doing a very great job at it. But within a blink of an eye, I am the one who brought it back in full force. As much as Alex's disorder was worrying me, especially since he had stormed out of the house, but what terrified me the most were the pictures that I had been sending to Jason. Jacques and I were exchanging sexy pictures of ourselves, including the intimate pictures that we had taken when we were in our moments. I didn't know if Alex had seen the pictures, but obviously he had, and I didn't want to see his reaction to them. I mean, I had never sent my own husband those kinds of pictures, but I was able to send them to my coworker. So I remained in the house until he came back, of which he came right after midnight. Mind you, he had started being worried about him, thinking that maybe he had done something to himself or something had happened to him, only to find out that he was okay and not even drunk or anything. The next day, Alex confronted me with the concrete evidence. I was devastated, realizing what had happened. He had heard everything. The flirtatious comments, the giggles, and even a whispered invitation from Jacques to meet up after work. I tried to explain, to tell him that it was harmless, that I was just trying to diffuse the tension. But Alex was beyond reason. He felt betrayed, and I couldn't blame him. The days that followed were a blur of tears, arguments, and desperation. I tried to make it right, to prove my love and loyalty, but the damage was done. Alex had lost trust in me, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing him. In the end, it was my own carelessness that destroyed our relationship. I learned a hard lesson about the importance of honesty and transparency, and as I look back on that fateful day, I realized that even the smallest actions can have the most devastating consequences. In the weeks that followed, Alex and I went through a painful breakup. I was heartbroken, but I knew I had to move on. I threw myself into my work, taking on more modeling jobs and focusing on my career. But the memory of Alex and the pain he had caused me lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been betrayed, not just by Alex, but by my own naivety. One day I received a call from an unknown number. It was a woman, and she introduced herself as Alex's new girlfriend. She told me that she had heard about our separation and wanted to know more about the real me. I was taken aback, but I decided to meet with her. Over coffee, she revealed that Alex had been manipulating her too, using jealousy and control to keep her in line. She had discovered the hidden recorder he had used on me and was horrified. Together, we pieced together the truth. Alex had a pattern of behavior, using his charm and good looks to manipulate women. He had done it to me, and now he was doing it to her. I felt a sense of vindication, knowing that I wasn't the only one who had been hurt by Alex's actions. But I also felt a sense of responsibility, realizing that I had enabled his behavior by staying in the relationship for so long. The woman and I parted ways, but I knew that I had to take action. I started a support group for women who had been in similar situations, and soon we had a community of survivors who were determined to heal and move forward. The following couple of days were really tough on me because Alex hadn't given my phone back. He was back to his normal self like nothing had happened, though I tried to be normal and move on like he was, but I was unsettled. That time I couldn't even ask him about my phone because I didn't know what or how his reaction would be, so I just let him be. It was very unusual for Alex to just be quiet and not do anything. I smelled something fishy with him. I told myself to wait for the worst and not relax until I got my phone back. 1 week later, I managed to get myself a banner phone to call Jacques to check if he was okay. I was worried that maybe Alex would have done something to him, and I found out that he was fine, which came as a huge relief to me. Little did I know that the worst was yet to come. So when I got to work, I was called by the company's superiors along with Jacques, and I got fired on the spot, along with Jason, because we had gone against the company's code of conduct and policy. As I was still shuttered like that, one of my colleagues, Models, who was also my friend, came to me and showed me the worst thing that would ruin someone's life. My pictures alone with Jacques were all over the internet. I couldn't believe it, and I knew that only one person couldn't actually do that because he was the one who had seen the pictures and he had been acting weird and strange. As I went about my day, trying to forget about what my colleague had told me and completely unaware of the lens capturing my every interaction, The truth slowly unraveled. What started as a normal day turned into a nightmare as the footage revealed the heartbreaking betrayal. Trust shattered, relationships destroyed, and lives forever changed by a simple piece of technology. I just couldn't believe that Alex would actually do this to me. My mind was playing a lot of clips. Somehow I thought that maybe they were working together with Jacques. Maybe I was a bait to check if I was loyal and weak or not, and I fell for that trap. Weeks later, I'd gone back to my Nana's house since Nick kicked me out and I didn't win for obvious reasons. 2 police officers came to my Nana's house and asked to speak to me. They told me that I was involved in some fraud, whatever thing that they had said, and just like that, I was arrested. As if that was big enough, but when I got out of prison after a month, I discovered that all my banking accounts were frozen. To think that was the least he had done. He continued by closing all my bank accounts, well, not closing, but more like took all my savings and every cent that was in my accounts. I was so depressed, my life had taken a very huge and worst turn ever. I tried calling Alex using my banner phone, but he didn't answer my call. I found myself calling Jacques, and he bluntly told me to never contact him again, and he wanted nothing to do with me. As if that wasn't enough, days later I received divorce papers stating that Alex was filing for a divorce and I will be leaving my marriage with nothing but my clothes. I had no money, no job, I had nothing. I tried reporting the picture case to the police department, but I didn't get any help. Instead, I got, "That's what you get for going against your wedding vows and acting like a hook," as if that was not shattering enough. It was heartbreaking. I literally and officially had nothing under my name. The house that we had both contributed to, Alex took it. It wasn't easy, but I finally found closure. I realized that I was worthy of love and respect, and that I didn't have to settle for anything less. And as for Alex, he eventually got what was coming to him. His new girlfriend left him, and his reputation was tarnished. He was left alone, a shell of the man he once was. I often think about that day, the day he put a hidden recorder in my purse. It was a turning point in my life, a wake-up call that forced me to confront the truth. And while it was painful, I am grateful for the lesson I learned, that I am strong, capable, and deserving of love and respect. Years went by and I continued to thrive in my career and personal life. I had started another job in another modeling company, of which I didn't stay for too long in that company because I became a successful businesswoman, starting my own modeling agency and empowering other women to take control of their lives. One day I received an unexpected visit from Alex. He looked worn out and his charm had faded. He apologized for his past actions, telling me that he had hit rock bottom and was seeking redemption. At first I was skeptical, but as he spoke, I saw a glimmer of sincerity in his eyes. He explained that he had been seeking help, attending therapy sessions and working on himself. I listened, and for the first time I saw Alex in a different light. He was no longer the manipulative, controlling person I had known. He was broken and he was trying to heal. I forgave him not for his sake, but for mine. I realized that holding on to anger and resentment was only hurting me. By forgiving him, I was freeing myself from the past. Alex and I didn't become friends, but we did become cordial. He would occasionally reach out, updating me on his progress and thanking me for my forgiveness. And then one day he called me with unexpected news. He had met someone, a wonderful woman who loved him for who he was. He was getting married and he wanted me to be there. I attended the wedding and it was a beautiful celebration of love and redemption. As I watched Alex exchange vows with his new wife, I felt a sense of closure and happiness. He had finally found his way and I had finally found mine. We had both been through hell, but we had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. As I looked around at the joyful faces, I realized that forgiveness is not just about others. It's about ourselves. It's about releasing the burden of resentment and embracing the freedom of forgiveness. There was or is no one to blame. Everything that is happening to me is the result of selfishness and greed. I wanted more than what I already had, and desired for an outside experience and left my husband in the house to get out to another man's house to satisfy my dark desires. I should have stayed and held on to my husband. Guys, I really don't know what to do. I know that I had been in my Nana's house for too long. Yes, I had gone back home. Chickens were back home to roost. Please tell me how to deal with this. How do I recover from everything? Because I have opened new bank accounts and that is the only thing that I have managed to do. I tried applying for jobs, but the pictures that were on the internet made me lose all the opportunities that I was getting. I just can't take it anymore. It's hard and I need a break from everything. Please advise me. How do I clean my image and reputation? Yes, I can't take back what has happened, but I want some change. I'm tired of living like this. I'm slowly sinking into depression. Please, any advice is acceptable. What do I do with my modeling agency company? I need help.